We're not caring for ourselves the way we should, and that affects our pets. When we're burnt out, when we're stressed out, when we're anxious, when we're sick physically, when we're sick mentally, it affects our pets. And so it is something that I have been very aware of and trying to bring into this podcast. Welcome back, pet parent. We have a really cool guest today. And welcome back. If you have been here a while, you know who I am. My name is Jessica. I am the host of the Pet Parenting Reset, a canine nutritionist and holistic pet health coach. But if you are new here, thank you so much for being here. We have a really cool guest today, and I'm glad you picked this episode to join us because Kyle Kittleson is with us. He is a senior animal trainer and mental health advocate. You have worked, Kyle, I'm going to introduce you in just a second, but have worked with dogs. You've worked with all kinds of species of animals, exotic birds, killer whales. This is a really, really cool episode for you guys to be joining in on. You use behavioral principles from Arizona State University, which is really cool. I'm glad you found a university that could teach you that because they don't all do that. And you're also currently the host of Med Circle. So you're interviewing leading mental health experts, which I find to be a topic we really need in today's day and age. You also are the creator of Baba Blast, which is an educational YouTube channel teaching children empathy and resilience, also something we need very much in today's society. And you have a really unique take on the human-animal bond, which I would love to talk more about. But before we do, welcome to the Pet Parenting Reset, Kyle. And
Yay. Hi. Hi, everybody. And hi, Jessica.
So I would just, before we jump into all of that, because there's so much to talk about, I would love to hear just a little bit about you and why you decided to jump into this field and how you got here. All right, let's talk straight. What's going on with your dog? What's going on with your cat? Do they have chronic GI issues? Bad breath, bad behavior, constant upset stomachs, diarrhea? Do they have indigestion symptoms? Do they have allergies? Are they itching all the time? Do they have skin issues? What is going on with your dog? Because chances are, based on the data, based on what we know, there is something going on with your dog or cat, because most dogs and cats in the US are not super healthy. Canada as well. And this is where Legacy Biome comes in. So thank you, Legacy Biome, for sponsoring this podcast. I have been using Legacy Biome with Kim. She has been fresh fed for nearly a decade since I got her, and there is always room to do better. I use testing to figure out what is actually going on and testing to figure out what is actually working. And Legacy Biome has been very helpful in creating a healthier gut microbiome for Kim. FMT in general, I have used before in the past. I recommend to my client dogs for a multitude of things. And it is a very crucial, I think, part of either reestablishing a healthy gut microbiome or maintaining a healthy gut microbiome for our pets. So Legacy Biome is different in that they use exceptionally clean donor dogs with exceptional diets. They also have cat microbiome FMT capsules coming out very, very soon. If they're not already out yet, if you have a cat, go check it out, legacybiome.com. But with a dog also, of course, we know they are using dogs that have for generations been in a low tox environment, no antibiotics, all the things that we are looking for with a very, very healthy fresh food diet, heavy and on diverse vegetation, which is what we're looking for. We want diversity in a healthy gut microbiome. That's something that a lot of raw fed dogs don't actually have, including my Kimberly, which is why we do FMT every once in a while to reestablish and maintain a healthy gut microbiome. So check out Legacy Biome, legacybiome.com. And yeah, let me know if you need any help with that. I'm so thrilled that Legacy Biome is a sponsor of the Pet Parenting Reset podcast, because you guys know I am incredibly particular about who comes on the podcast, what I talk about, and when looking for a sponsor for this podcast, I had to find the exact right fit. I'm not just bringing anything to you guys. I have turned down so many offers because they're not right. They don't fit with the message. They don't fit with what I believe in, what I see works with dogs and cats. And I'm not going to bring you just anything, which is why I'm thrilled to be working with Legacy Biome. So give them a try. LegacyBiome.com. I would love to hear just a little bit about you and why you decided to jump into this field and how you got here.
Into the mental health field or the animal space?
Let's go with the animal space
Yeah.
first, and then we'll talk about mental health.
I was born with this kind of disgusting passion for marine animals. I mean, I'm just obsessed with them. I still am. And no, there was no catalyst to it. There was no one singular event. I grew up in Arizona in the desert, and I think I was just enamored with the fact that there was water and animals lived in there, you know? And then when I started to learn about those animals and see them, I was a big Jacques Cousteau fan, and I went to marine summer camps, and I went to SeaWorld when I was a kid and all these things. And I was like, these are the best animals on the planet. Like, I remember asking my dad one time when I was really young, I go, why doesn't everybody love marine animals as much as me? It boggled my mind because I was like, to me, it was such an obvious passion, but I never thought I would do it. I never thought I would get involved because you want to talk about a lot of work, a lot of sacrifice. Go work with animals in any capacity, really. I mean, it is you don't meet a lot of, animal trainers, animal behaviorists, animal keepers. I mean, pick a category or a field who are making a ton of money. You don't get Christmas off. Saturdays and Sundays, that doesn't mean anything. The animals still got to be cared for on Saturdays and Sundays and Christmas. So you sacrifice a lot for the passion. And I was very selfish when I was very young. And I was like, I'm never going to do that. I'm going to do other things. But, but, I remember reading a book in college, and the book said, if you are not pursuing your passion and you have a passion and you're not pursuing it, you are going to eventually end up in your passion. They're like, it will happen for you. If you're not on that pursuit, you might as well get on it because it's going to happen anyway. And I remember thinking, yeah, right. What does this book know about anything? And then I ended up working with marine animals, and I had to really work to get into the field because I started with exotics and I started with marine animals, and I started with an unpaid internship in Hawaii right after I graduated college and worked with tons of animals. And then they hired me, and then I became a trainer, and then I moved around and blah, blah, blah. And then I started a dog training company and, just had this whole life with animals. And it was the best, the best. Like, it's just the best. Yeah.
Yeah,
As your listeners know.
it is, but you're so right. It is something that they appreciate it. They don't necessarily appreciate it, like show the appreciation in ways that can sustain us for long periods of time, but they certainly appreciate it. And I think when you have the education like you do, you might be able to see that appreciation a little bit better with all of the behavioral knowledge that you have. The average person, though, like that, I will admit, I have had at least one pet since the day I turned 18, and I have experienced burnout. Like I have experienced on the floor crying, I can't do this
What did
anymore.
I do? Yeah, what did I do? I understand that. Of course I understand that. I just became the proud parent. My dream pet is a macaw. And I worked with lots of different parrots in my career. And I was never going to get a macaw until I was ready financially, till I had the space and I had the time to do it the way I wanted, because I really wanted as close to a zoological setup as I could for cleanliness, for the wellness of the animal, etc. And well, I finally got there. And I've been wanting this since I was 13 years old. This bird, and I'm 39. I got her last year when I was 38. I've had her for about a year and a half, 2 years now. I'm still waiting for that moment where I go, oh my gosh, this is overwhelming. But I'm still in the honeymoon phase 2 years later where I love everything. Even when she poops on the ground, I'm like, I get to clean up bird poop. I'm so lucky.
Oh my gosh. Well, is she gonna outlive you? Like,
Yeah, so she's in my will. So
okay.
if today I die, she goes to my best friend, and then he works with I call it a council of people that I've worked with and met throughout my life who are all bird people. And he also gets some money, and his job is to find her new forever home. Now, while I am alive, my job is to put that home in place. But in the interim, I don't have that yet. I don't have somebody where I go, "Yeah, you take her. I feel good about that."
Yeah.
And so hopefully I find that. But yeah, hopefully she does outlive me. And of course, I went through all of that. I mean, I've been thinking about this since I was 13. So I, I did it this way, and there are good things about it and bad things about it, but this is the way we're doing it.
Yeah. Birds are very interesting to me. I have a bit of a fear of birds. I don't think I
Good.
told you this on our like pre-podcast chat. I have never my mom had some birds when I was growing up, and they were Java rice birds, and they like it was a male and a female. They like mate for life, and the male would like peck at the female to where like she would get sores and they would get infected and all the things. And one time she died, and then he died because they mate for life and then there done. And I just like it was one of the first times in my life where I was just like bawling my like I did not really participate in the care of these animals. I cried so hard and I'm like, "Oh, yeah, death is real."
Yeah.
Right? And I don't know if that changed my perspective of birds in general, but I'm definitely scared of them. I have had like a pet bird like chase me around the house and I'm like, "No, I cannot do that."
Get it. And, the macaw I have is the largest of all flighted parrots, and she's 3 pounds, she's 3 feet long, she's huge, she's massive, she's got the biggest beak of any parrot, and, I mean, not any parrot, I guess there are certain but it's definitely the strongest beak of any parrot, and,
Oh,
and I take her out all the time, and when people see her, very common reaction is, "Oh, I'm afraid of birds." I go, "I get it, I understand." They fly, they're unpredictable, and parrots and birds are not domesticated animals, and these are exotic animals, and that's a whole different type of trust building, relationship building, and understanding. Right now, like you said so many nice complimentary things about me, how I have this knowledge and background of behavior. But when I got this bird, I found the guy who's like the bird guy. Okay. His name's Chris Bureau. He's trained every bird trainer in America, and he's the number one free flight bird trainer, in my opinion. And I meet with him every single week for 3 hours virtually. It's a long, long class. It's one on one. And he teaches me every single thing you can think about parrots, the physiology, the biology, the history, their adaptations, their mating, their upbringing, everything. Because I'm like, this is what I'm doing. I'm not having children. I'm not seeking out a family. I'm not doing any of that. My dream has been get into a house, get a bird, get this specific bird. Like, this is what my focus is on. All my money goes to my bird. Everything. I mean, I drastically underestimated the cost of this bird because I'm just like, she needs this, she needs this. I want a bigger this, I want a better that, get her two
yeah.
of those. And I tell people, never, ever, ever get a bird. Ever, ever. No, nobody is ready for a bird. The average parrot is rehomed 9 times in its life. Nine
How
times.
sad.
And part of that is because they live a long time, okay? But
Mhm.
the main part is that you have these beautiful creatures, beautiful, that they can talk sometimes, which people go nuts for. And the perception is that, oh, I'll buy it a cage and it'll live in the cage and I'll feed it and give it water and I'll have this cool bird that'll be so cool and it'll talk and my friends will think it's cool. Well, you really bought something that's way more intelligent than the dog you got. You bought something that can fly, which is a set of challenges. You bought something that is inherently destructive and wants to be destructive. They want to destroy things. That's what they wake up. They're like, today I got to destroy.
Destroy.
And they're expensive. They're really, really expensive. So people go, I got to get rid of this thing. And then it's terrible. It's terrible. That's why I was doing another podcast and I said, Jessica, I was like, if I had to guess, I would guess. And y'all, I know there are bird people listening, so don't get mad at me. But I would guess that 10% of bird owners are meeting minimum standards of care. Meaning 90% of birds are living in conditions that for any number of reasons I would consider subpar, not meeting the minimum requirements because they're so difficult. It's not a cat, it's not a fish.
Well, it's interesting because I'm thinking like outside of the flying thing, cats are I've said this so many times and people do come at me about this statement, but I feel like cats are more difficult than dogs. And I have a feel I say this a lot too, that I feel like more cats are not properly like, I still am happy that they're in a home, they're being fed, litter boxes are clean, like, I'm happy about that. But generally speaking, I feel very much like a similar thought process to cats that you do about birds, that they're really not getting what they need in our homes more often than not. So everything you're saying about these birds, I'm like, I say that about cats all the time.
Yeah, and I think there's probably more resilience in a cat or a
There
dog
is.
in
Yeah.
most homes than an exotic bird who's never been domesticated. The bird suffers at a harder rate than a cat who's maybe not getting the stimulation, engagement, nutrition it needs or
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah.
But the truth is like, and you know what? A lot of, I'm not having kids, but all my friends have kids, and they see me, everything I do to take care of Spire. That's my bird. Her name's Spire. And they go, Kyle, like that sounds even harder than having my kid. I go, that cannot be true. They go, well, the way you do it, it's definitely harder than having a kid. So
Right.
you
The
could
way
also
you
make
do
it as
it.
hard as you want it to be.
Yeah. Yes. 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 So I of course, we talked to the very beginning. You do a lot with mental health, and I definitely want to talk as much as we can about that. But before we do get to the mental health aspect of this, because there is a human animal bond that is, I think it encompasses so much of our lives that we're not like tapping into much of it. But I'm very curious before we start talking about all of that, like how similar, because I trained dogs for a little while. I don't do it anymore. I got over it. Like you said earlier, people get into working with animals and then it's like, this isn't. I was one of those people that got into training dog. I really did it because I wanted to keep dogs out of shelters and rescues. I was like, well, this is something I can do. And then I realized how much it's actually people training
Exactly.
when you're doing it like one on one in homes. I wasn't over here training like canine police dogs or anything, right? It's just, I need my dog potty trained. I need my dog to stop jumping on me, like those kinds of things.
Mhm.
And I'm like, it was so much people training. But so I'm curious how what you're doing in like, I assume like a zoo setting with these exotic animals, and you can correct me on that. How different is it? Because you've done both. You did the dog training. Like, how different is it really?
The training is not different at all.
Okay.
I mean, train
The
a dog, train
principles.
a whale, train a bird, train a mouse. I mean, it really is fundamentally the same. Where species specific behaviors or nuances are certainly a consideration, but even in dog training, you see that among different dog breeds. So I
Mhm.
don't even think that's that different. The big difference is in a zoological setting, you are working with a team who's there full time to train these animals and make sure they're good. That's your whole job, and you're not doing it alone. You got tons of people doing it, and you got a vet staff doing it, and you've got if you're at a good facility, you've got every single thing you could possibly need to make this animal's life enriching and stimulating and vibrant and awesome. And when you're working with dogs, you don't really have that. No one's doing it full time. No one's waking up and going, now, I've just got to think about my dog all day today. They're not doing that. They train for 15 minutes and they're like, "Oh, that was good enough. I hope my trainer doesn't yell at me and that'll be the end of it." And so I think that's a big difference, but the training is the same. I mean, with yes, nuances across animal types exist, but the training's the same. And the caveat I would say is if you are a dog trainer who uses punishment, which by the way, I think is coming back a little bit. I
Yeah.
was when I was really in the dog training world, I had a dog training company and I sold it. And then I was a dog training consultant and I consulted other dog training companies, both on the business side and actual training. I did more the business side at that point than actual training. And it was, no one did punishment. I mean, it was like positive reinforcement. Now I'm seeing that come back a little bit. And in a zoological setting, there's no punishment, not at anyone I've ever worked in.
Yeah.
And I've worked in multiple facilities and I know people at virtually every facility, and that doesn't exist. So if you are training a puppy with punishment, that's not going to work on a tiger. Okay. So I think that could be a difference there. And I will also say this: the best relationships I've had in my life are with animals, and the best animals I've had relationships with were more intelligent, higher intelligent animals. Yes, I love a dumb lab, okay? I had one for 13 years, and she was fabulous. She died this year. It was terrible,
Oh,
worst thing ever. Everyone has gone through that. It's terrible. We all know that. And I love that, right? She's the best dog, not the smartest, but so awesome. Well, you work with a dolphin, super intelligent. You work with a whale, even more intelligent. And then that intelligence, it almost like brings them closer to you together with them. And
mhm,
then when you start teaching them things, and then you start learning their nuances and their personality, and then they start learning your nuances and personality, now you have this bond that I have never recreated the same way with a pet, with a and I love my pets so, so much. That dog, Callie, oh my god, just thinking about her, my heart skipped a beat. But it was different than the relationships I had with dolphins, for example, because they're just
yeah,
you're on a different playing field. It's like, can I really become best friends with a 6-year-old? Probably not.
right.
Like, we don't have enough, like, he's not smart enough for me. So I need someone around my age where I can be like, "All right, we're smart." Yeah.
So, okay, I saw this the other day and I knew I had to like bank it for something. You know those talking buttons that people
Yeah.
use for their dogs and cats? Okay.
Yes.
So there was this one cat, and it's not an account I follow, so I couldn't tell you even the cat's name or anything. But this cat, oh my goodness, it was watching like on repeat a Disney movie. I don't remember which one it was, Moana or something. I have no idea. I don't know, follow them. But in the movie, in the reel, they were showing someone in the movie was teaching someone else their language. It was a different language. And it was the word for it was either welcome or hello. I don't remember which one. And so the cat kept going over to her buttons saying pushing the new word button. And the person finally caught on like, "Oh, she's trying to get me to put a new word on the board." And just out of like trying to figure things out, she put this word that's in another language on the board. And so once she did that, the cat hit the button with this word in a different language. And the person, you could hear the person saying, yeah, what does that mean? And the cat goes over and pushes the English word for whatever it meant. And she's like, my cat is learning a new language from a movie. And I'm just curious, like, that's crazy to me.
Yeah. Those things are crazy. And, I've never actually seen one in person. I don't know anyone personally who's used it. I've never used any of it. The first one I ever saw, I think it was a sheepdog that got really famous for it, and we chatted actually online a little bit because I had a it doesn't matter why. So, here my response to that though is it's very easy for us, especially with pets, okay? Like, take exotics out of it, pets, the ones who share our bed, the ones who we give voices to, and all these things, for us to be very anthropomorphic. And it's in that space of anthropomorphism we can be like, oh, she's trying to do this or she wants this. And as the behaviorist in me goes, ooh, we would never say she wants that. Because you don't
Yeah.
know. You don't know. You might be right, but you
Hmm.
don't know. You try to speak and think as factually and unbiasedly as possible. So cat presses the button. We know that the cat pressed the button. The cat wants the thing because of da 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 and press the button. Who knows? Maybe, maybe not. And so, like right now, there's a parrot going viral because the parrot's communicating through an iPad. So I'm like, all right, let me see how the parrot's communicating through an iPad. And there are grossly exaggeratory conclusions based on the parrot's behavior. Like the
Yeah.
parrot, clicks something and they're like, oh, it, loves, that's because it's 3 o'clock and grandma always calls at 3 o'clock and he loves grandma. So he clicked the heart. And you're like, oh, how do you know that? That's crazy.
Yeah.
So I don't really, the learning language thing to me, that is an exaggeration. I don't think they're actually learning languages, but associations for sure, they can learn associations. I did an experiment with, I hate to call it experiment, but we'll call it a behavioral trial with a hyacinth macaw that I worked with named Maxine, who is one of the loves of my life. And what I did is I wanted to see if Maxine could essentially use, what's it called? I forgot the name of it. I forget the name of it, but the trial worked like this. I taught Maxine, all right, this is a rock. Okay. Rock. So I'd put the rock on the table and I'd say, rock. And she would go get the rock and bring it back and put it in my hand. Be like, good job. And then I would bring out a key and I'd go, key. And I'd train her key. And she learned key meant go get that object and bring it back and put it in his hand. And then I had the rock and the key both out on the table. And I'd say, go get the rock. Great. Bring it back. I'd put it back. Go get the rock. Great. She'd do it again. Go get the key. Great. Okay. So she's distinguishing between these two objects based on the cue that I've given them, which is the name
Mhm.
of the object.
Mhm.
So once that was completed, what I wanted to see is could she use process of elimination? That was the phrase I was looking for. Through the process of elimination, determine the word of a new object she's never seen and a word that she's never heard. So I bring out a third object. The rock is there, the key is there, and I bring out, let's say it was a marble, and I bring out marble, and she's never seen this, and she's never heard the word marble. And I say, go get your marble. So she knows it, right? I'm being a little anthropomorphic.
Mhm.
She's going, all right, this is rock.
Right.
This is key. He didn't say rock. He didn't see K. He said marble. Maybe he means this third one, whatever. She went to the third one and she got it. And that was a very telling thing for me that this animal could critically think and problem solve without having the training, initially to back it up for marble. And I just thought that was very, very interesting. It and she was able to do it consistently, accurately over and over and over again. And we could bring in new objects and she would do it over and over again. And then I started doing it with dogs. I started doing it with my dog, Callie. And I'd go get your bone, go get your ball, go get your rope, go get your slinky or whatever word I'd use. And she'd go, oh, it's probably that one. And so they are able to make those associations and I'll say learn language through that
Mhm.
process of elimination, which I think is cool.
Well, I think that's interesting that you're like a dumb lab, but then the dumb lab
Yeah.
could
And
do
when
it.
I say dumb lab, it's very tongue in.
Yes.
I don't even mean it insulting. I mean it more as a whale, you can tell the whale to do 7 things and it'll all at once, just with your hands. And it'll look at
Wow.
you, you say, I want you to jump, spit water out your mouth, wiggle left and right. And then when you're done, do a backflip. The whale's like, no problem. I'll be right back. And that'd be hard for a lot of dogs to learn, but they do it,
For
but it'd
sure.
be harder. Yeah.
That's so interesting. So, okay, animals in the ocean. I'm fascinated by them as well. So many people are also scared of them. I think it's an unknown thing, right? Maybe. And I also think, didn't I just see that Mexico has banned dolphins in captivity now?
Yeah. And I
Which is,
also read that they are planning to release those dolphins in the ocean. And when I read that, I stay away from that because it is a sensitive subject to me. I
yeah.
stay out of it because I know there are people, when you said he's worked with killer whales, a ton of people go, ooh, gross, that guy, oh, bad, blackfish, blah, blah, SeaWorld, and that response, I understand it because I understand what media is available out there to be consumed. As
Hmm.
somebody who was a senior killer whale trainer at Shamu Stadium in Orlando, I can tell you that the public's perception and the reality are not aligned at all. And when Mexico announces this grandiose objective of banning dolphins for, we'll call it in captivity, my I get enraged because it's so short sighted. On those dolphins, good luck getting them out in the ocean. Tell me how it goes.
Yeah.
Let me know how it goes. It's not going to go well. It's not going to go well. And so because you're upset about something, you're going to torture hundreds of dolphins to make you feel better. I don't like that. I think that's awful. The animal welfare should be first, not what makes you feel good. Okay. Number one.
Yeah.
Number two is the public forgets or doesn't even realize that I don't know about Mexico, but at least in the United States, the facilities that house animals like dolphins and whales and sea lions and penguins and whatever are used to house all of the animals that get injured or beached or hurt in the ocean. We did it all the time. Pilot whales would come in after getting just destroyed on the beach and we'd rehab them and put them back out into the ocean. If you shut that facility down, where do they go now? Where do they go? So
Right.
for me, if I could design my own world, I'd be like, yeah, no animals in captivity. None. Zero. Zero. I would hate that. Keep it all in nature, okay? But we don't live in that world. And so now we have to think what's best for the animals that are under our care. I never would ever think putting them in the ocean would be better for them. And if go research it, go Google and
Yeah.
then make your own
Like, they
opinion
wouldn't
up.
survive, I wouldn't
No.
think.
No,
Yeah.
and just the fact that they're going in from perfectly clean water that's
Mhm.
analyzed and monitored and made sure it's perfect to the ocean, yeah, I mean, is disastrous. And then 2, we lose our facilities and infrastructure to help wild animals. Nobody, no organization rescues, saves, releases more animals into the ocean more than SeaWorld. So you can hate SeaWorld for having killer whales. I understand why. Killer whales should be in the ocean, but they're not. But you also have to acknowledge that SeaWorld's the only one doing anything to help those wild animals. You got some
Yeah.
other you got marine mammal care program up and down the coast. You have little ones, but they're not doing the volume that SeaWorld does. Because SeaWorld has the space, they have the money, they have the staff, you know? Yeah.
Yeah.
So he
Yeah.
does it. I can get on my
I
soapbox real quick and get really
I
passionate.
like it. I appreciate it. And, like, and I also appreciate that, you're willing to just let this conversation go wherever.
Yeah, of course.
But I think, yeah, to try to get a little bit back on track. So what came first as far as your interest in mental health? Because you have this series on YouTube where you're helping to educate children. And I imagine, is that more in your like animal wheelhouse? How did all of this happen?
Well, I mean, when I left the animal training world, I moved to LA because I wanted to be Steve Irwin, Jeff Corwin, Jack Hanna, right? I was like, I'm going to have my own show on TV with animals. And that never happened. And I got some gigs and did some stuff. And I was working, but I never, quote, made it, you know? And then my boss today, he goes, hey, I want you to, because I was doing all this on camera work for animal stuff. He goes, why don't you just do some interviews with these mental health doctors? And I was like, I'm not a mental health person. And he's like, yeah, but you're good on camera. Go do this. Okay. Well, the first doctor I interviewed was Dr. Ramani. She's a clinical psychologist. And that video went to 15 million views on YouTube. And my boss called me and goes, you need to do more interviews with these doctors. I was like, okay. So then I just started interviewing doctors and then he hired me and I quit everything and went full time interviewing these doctors. And I went into a studio every day and interviewed doctors from all over the world on virtually almost every mental health condition. And as I started in the mental health space and getting educated on the topic, now I consider myself very educated on the topic 8 years later. I have talked to so many professionals about parenting, so many.
Mhm.
And they all pretty much say the same thing that our children need empathy and they need to learn empathy and they need to learn resilience. And we're lacking in those 2 areas. They're learning a lot of other stuff and a lot of other things are good, but where we're lacking is empathy and resilience. And not to make a long story even longer, but I go see what my 3-year-old nephew was watching on YouTube. And I looked at his mom and was like, what are we doing with this? This is garbage. Literally, I can't even tell you what they were watching. It was so stupid. And I go, we can make better programming. And so I just started with animals because that's what I know. And then I was like, I want to have an emotional intelligence and emotional well-being component to this show because we are in that developmental stage 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. These are the primo years. This is where the kids are made, okay, in this early childhood development. And so now we are hard in empathy and resilience with the language we use in the shows, by modeling it, by having them interact with the show, by even just them inadvertently learning mantras from the show of resilience and empathy. There's lots of ways you can prime these kids for the future, you know? Because if you are an empathic, resilient human being, you have such an edge. You have a huge edge. That is like you are a superpower if you are empathic and resilient.
Yeah. Yes. Say I got the empathic part and I didn't get the resilient part. Don't recommend.
Wait, don't recommend what?
Having empathy without resilience. Don't recommend that at all.
Yeah, it's nice to have both for sure.
Nice to have both. Yeah, well, and you just said that's where like little humans are made in these really really young years, and have been, me and my best friend actually both have been like going down the rabbit hole of narcissism lately
I
because
know everything about that. I can talk about narcissism for sure.
we're in this we're in this place where everything you say is, oh, that's so narcissistic, they're such a and it's like we're missing the forest for the trees because it's not everything is narcissism, not everyone is a narcissist, and so
Some
the
people are
ones that
just
truly
jerks
are, right, and then the ones that truly are getting a pass because everyone is,
because
and
everyone is.
it's like,
I know.
no,
Yeah,
yeah, there's so much with mental health, and I think a lot of that is like you just said, is shaped in childhood.
absolutely.
Appreciate it. So you're using your bird a lot in these
Yeah, so
videos.
she comes on my kid show, which is Baba Blast, and that's on YouTube. And it's on some other streaming platforms, but mostly on YouTube. And I make these videos with my nephew. They started really because I was like, let's hang out and make better YouTube videos. And then he got really into being the director, so now he directs. But we bring the bird in Spire. She's the inspiration macaw. So when we're on a journey and we're low on inspiration, we meet Spire, and then she reminds us all these cool things and good things that have happened to us, and we get inspired to continue on with our journey. And so she's, I like to consider her an ambassador for her species, but also for the show. And it's cool. One of my favorite things I did when I worked professionally as an animal trainer was name of it, and I've done 100 of them. Oh, the Make-A-Wish Foundation. Because yes, you're helping these children who are in just unthinkable circumstances, but for these kids to meet a dolphin or see the largest flighted parrot, like they are just so amped, like I'm not trying to bag on dogs, but they've seen a dog probably, but they might not have seen these other amazing animals. And so that's really fun. So to be able to kind of do that for kids with Spire, because I do a lot of in-person events too, it's so fun. I mean, they're just, mouth open, enamored, you know. And you have to get kids passionate about the things you want them to care for. And
Mhm.
I want kids to care for their natural world. And for them to start to care about this world, they have to fall in love with it. And so I try to showcase the animals and nature component hard on Baba Blast. Be like, look what's out here. Look what we live in. Look how amazing this is. Don't you love this? And they're like, yeah, because they will protect what they love.
That so much because we're in bad shape right now, our society, I think.
So tough out there.
Yeah, it is really tough. So, with the mental health aspect of everything you do, because you do a lot, it's one of the things I know I probably mentioned to you the last time we spoke was that this year, especially, I have really been trying to bring in a component to the show for the pet parents and realizing that my audience, the people that are listening to this right now, generally speaking, are going to be people who we call 2.0 pet parents. These are the people who they're not just doing, whatever is at Petco, PetSmart, doing the basic training class, like, and calling it a day. These are the people who are questioning the status quo, who are questioning why we're giving so many vaccines. They're questioning,
My dream clients.
yes,
Yeah.
like they're questioning things and they're looking for more natural alternatives to raising their animals. And what I find is that when we get on this path, whether it's, I saw this in rescue a lot, the burnout that's in rescue, there's certainly burnout in the veterinary industry. I'm sure you've seen quite a bit of burnout, but people who are this passionate about their animals, again, something that you give to that you are getting back, but you're not getting back in the same way that you would with like a job or you know what I mean? Like you're not getting the same type of return on your investment. You do get that burnout. We're not caring for ourselves the way we should. And that affects our pets. When we're burnt out, when we're stressed out, when we're anxious, when we're sick physically, when we're sick mentally, it affects our pets. And so it is something that I have been very aware of and trying to bring into this podcast this year, especially. So I know I went through some things that I shared with I shared with, like, my core group of audience earlier this year that I went through some therapy. I needed therapy to help me to make sure that my head was on straight, that I went through something very traumatic, and I wanted to make sure that I was processing the way I was supposed to be processing, that I was healing and not remaining stagnant in that, like, traumatic energy. And so I have become more passionate about therapy, and using it appropriately. At the same time, I think we talked about in our society right now, I do feel like people are identifying as their diagnosis. How do you say that word? I don't know what I'm saying.
Diagnosis?
Like, that is really that's troubling to me. Like, that's unhealthy to me. So, using therapy in an appropriate way. And so, I'd love for you to talk a little bit about how interviewing these mental health experts has changed your life.
Well, I'll start by a disclaimer saying I'm not a doctor. I'm a layperson, but I do have this. I mean, I've sat down with doctors multiple times a week, sometimes every day for 8 years. This past weekend, I filmed a 15-hour course all on trauma for 15 hours straight over 2 days. So whatever, 7 or 8 hours a day, trauma. Okay. With one of the world's, I mean, when after the trauma course, he was flying to Oxford to go teach. He's the trauma guy. Okay. I want to talk about a little trauma stuff because everyone's going through that. But let's also talk about the burnout. Burnout, we talked a lot at Med Circle, especially during COVID, because people were burned out. And I want people to first go through a process of determining whether or not they're burned out or whether or not they're just stressed. They're going through a rough patch. It's been a rough week. Maybe it's been a rough month. Sometimes people will refer that to a brownout. It's like we'll call it one step below a burnout, not to minimize anyone's
Yeah.
experience. But if you're really in a burnout where, like you mentioned, Jessica, you're physically sick, you aren't really being productive, your brain cannot function. And even after a 2-day weekend getaway at the spa where you didn't look at your phone and you didn't touch, you're not any better on Monday. That's burnout. The doctors I've talked to, unfortunately, and I normally try to be very hopeful, but I also honesty before everything. The doctors I've talked to, unfortunately, goes, if you are burnt out, the only way to get out of that burnout is to take an extended period of time. This could be ideally months, if you could take
Mhm.
months away. Now, most people are going to hear that and be like, nice life. You can't just
Right?
quit my job and not take care of my kids and like blah, blah,
Mhm.
blah. But I'm just telling you what the ideal scenario would be. You need 3, 4, 5, 6 months to let your body recalibrate because this is not a massage is not going to fix burnout. Okay. If you don't have that, which most people don't, it is critical that and I just hate stuff we've already heard, but sometimes the reason you keep hearing it is because it's the right answer. It's the truth.
Mhm.
You must create a schedule that prioritizes your self-care. Self-care number 1. And self-care, some people define it differently. My definition of self-care is anything that's good for me. So, I love sitting on the couch and binging Netflix. Love it. I love to rot on the couch. That feels good for me. And then the next day I'm like, "Yeah, I did that. Now I can go do something else." That's good for me. I like doing it. Self-care for me is also exercise, but I don't like exercise. But I go do it because it's good for me. It's part of my self-care. I'm better when I exercise.
Mhm.
I spoke to a doctor this weekend, the trauma doctor, and he goes, I don't agree with your definition of self-care. I think self-care is good for you and it feeds your soul. So for you, Kyle, exercise doesn't feed your soul. I go, definitely not. It is just a thing on the to-do list. And he goes, I wouldn't put that as self-care for you. I go, okay. So whatever you're there, I'm just giving options for people to consider. But you have to do it. And you have to do it for your own life. For your own life. If the burnout manifested as markings all over your face, you would address it immediately. If a big marks and lesions came on your face because of burnout, you would address it immediately. And that is happening internally and both mentally and physically. So treat this as though you have lesions on your face. That's how severe this is. And start to prioritize that self care. And that might mean your production at work goes down. And that might mean your spouse has to jump in more to help out with the kids. And that might mean that you don't spend every single minute with your kids. I mean, this is what I'm talking about. These are drastic changes, but you do it for yourself. For those going through burnout, it's tough. It's really, really tough. And I'm sorry you're going through that. You're not alone going through it. And finding a community out is also very helpful. And then finally, the trauma. You know what I learned this weekend after doing the trauma course? And it's always interesting. I've been talking about trauma for 8 years with professionals, and I still sit there and learn something. One thing he said, his name is Dr. Frank Anderson. He said, the clue is in the behavior. And what he meant by that was if you're binge drinking or eating fast food all the time or using drugs or exercising all the time or working 60 hours or 70 hours a week, those are all clues into your unresolved trauma.
Mm,
So when you start, because a lot of people think, oh, my trauma, I'm not impacted by my trauma. Oh, that happened so long ago. I'm not impacted by my trauma. I go, yeah, but look how much you're drinking. Or look at how short tempered you are with your children.
mhm.
Look at how your dog that you bought and you love and you're like love, but you are like irritated by that dog. The clue is in those behaviors. And so getting curious, you don't want to be judgmental because then that just makes the trauma worse. But if you can get curious and go, I wonder why I'm having a bottle of wine every night, because that is more than maybe I should be drinking. And it's every night. And you start to think about that. Curiously, not judgmental, curious. I wonder why I do that. I'm protecting myself from something. I'm not
Mhm.
there is a protective factor. I'm not just doing it because I like to drink. So that was one. The clues are in the behavior. So I think when people start to think about that, it curiously, not judgmentally, I think it's very nice. The 3 steps to healing that trauma is, 1, safely, and doing it with a therapist for a lot of people is really a nice way to do it, but it's not the only way. But expressing that traumatic event. And there's a difference between reliving it, and we're not suggesting that, and visiting it, which is what we want to do. We want to visit the trauma. And maybe you can only visit it for a few seconds to begin with. But eventually you get to a point where you could write out what happened, how you were feeling, what the weather was like, who was there for you, who wasn't there for you, why you were angry about it, whatever it is, all the details, and just acknowledge it. Just literally point it out. This is what happened. This is what happened. This is what happened. And here's all the details for it. That's step number 1. And step number 2 is to then find love and connection. He said something about how the traumatic event isn't necessarily the biggest culprit of whether or not you will have symptoms related to the traumatic event. Where whether or not you would develop PTSD or not, more comes from what happened after the traumatic event. If you were abused as a child and no one came to save you or help you or tell you you're safe,
Right.
that trauma is going to stick. If you're
Yeah.
abused as a child, but then your parents came to you and surrounded you with love and connection and support, trauma still sucks. You're still going to have stuff from the trauma, not dismissing that. But that love and connection heals so much of it right afterwards. So now going back to these steps, look, if I can acknowledge what happened, express what happened. I even told him, Jessica, I go, what if I expressed it to my AI because I don't have a therapist? He goes, do it. Express it to something. Express it to your dog. I tell my bird everything. So tell your bird. And then you find that love and connection. And that's hard for people to do because people feel like they don't deserve love and connection. They feel
Mhm.
like they're a burden for wanting love and connection. They feel like they have to give love. They have to give of themselves. I want you to be a taker. I want you to be a selfish taker in step 2. Okay. And then in the step 3, recognize those moments, and they will likely be small moments in the beginning, but recognize those small moments of healing where the door slammed and your heart wasn't you didn't panic and start heart racing. If you were in a car accident, you get into the car and you're like, "Oh, I drove 3 blocks without even panicking. That's pretty good because normally I panic the whole time." Those small little moments of healing. Those 3 steps, simple to say, very complicated to actually do and not easy to do, okay? But there is a path forward through trauma. There really is. Healing is possible. I watch and hear and see people heal all the time, every day. We have millions of people who watch a Med Circle, millions all over the world, and they have unimaginable trauma, and they do the work, quote unquote, and they experience healing. Now, does healing look like you're 100% back to your normal self, whatever that was? Does healing look like I never think about that traumatic thing that happened to me anymore? No. But you get your life back. You see a future. You start to get excited about the future. Those things are good. It's hard. I think if you're excited about the future, it's that doesn't jive well with symptoms of trauma. I think that's one another little win. If you're like, "Man, I'm excited about next year." Good for
Yes.
you. You're healing. You're healing. Yeah,
Yeah, I think a couple of things that I've been learning is that healing is a journey and not a destination,
absolutely.
but also that it's okay to and we should continue to live our lives and move forward while we're still healing. Like, it's not something that I see a lot of people who are like, "I have to heal. I have these things I need to heal from." And then they, like, stagnate in their life because they want to be healed, especially when it comes to, like, relationships. And I think also, too, there are some relational traumas that can only be healed in a healthy relationship, and you've gotta get there to for that to happen. And it's not black and white, it's very complex, but to tell people that, to keep living your life is something I
Yeah, the
really want.
best you can, and that
Yeah,
will look different day to day, you know?
yeah.
When I was diagnosed with depression when I was 9 years old, and if I go off my meds, you will find me in the dark room in the bed, okay? I'm not coming out. It is disastrous, and that's what I can manage to do on those days, you know? And then other days, get out and take a walk, and it looks good. I don't want to pry, Jessica, so don't obviously, don't, there's no obligation, of course, but when you went through something recently that was traumatic, was it because most people, most emails I get, was it relationship oriented, the
Yes.
trauma? Yeah. So unsolicited, Dr. Ramani, who is my go-to on narcissism, narcissistic abuse specifically, she is the queen. Whatever she says is what I believe, okay, when it comes to this topic. And I have probably banked it's gotta be 500 hours of talking to her about narcissism over the years.
Wow.
Maybe more than that, maybe more, and I've read all her books and blah, blah, blah. Okay, so one thing is that healing part. She always tells the people that she works with, "If you are out of a narcissistic relationship, please, with every ability you have, please stay single for a year, at least 1 full year." And she goes, "There's so many reasons, and there's no perfect time. It's not like after a year, you're
Yeah,
like." But if you
right.
go through a year, you go through all of the anniversaries, all of the holidays, all of the seasons changing, all of the things that you went through probably in the relationship. And it gives you one full little cycle of like, all right, I've done Christmas, I've done New Year's, I've done birthday, I've done our anniversary, I've done them all. I got one under my belt, single, just focused on me, you know? And the really fun play, part I think of getting out of a narcissistic relationship is that you get to get reintroduced to you.
Yep.
You get to be like, "Wait, I love Italian food, and we
Right.
never got to go eat Italian because my freaking narcissistic boyfriend always took us to get sushi." And then you're like, "Oh my god, like, I can just stay up late tonight. Like,
Mhm.
I love staying up late on a Tuesday. This is fun." You get to meet yourself again. And so a
Mhm.
lot of and it's mostly women because more men are narcissists than women, in my opinion, and what some research indicates. These women get excited because 'cause they're like, "This is fun.
Yeah.
This is fun. I'm out of that. and I'm rediscovering myself. So I
Mhm.
hope that people who are going through that journey, and if you're going through that journey, Jessica, that you start to have some of those moments.
They are they are fun when you get them. When you realize you're like, "Oh, I can do whatever I want now."
I know. And you realize you like stuff. You're like, "Oh, I
Yeah,
like that." And
yeah,
you're like, "Oh, I don't like doing that." It's like when I dated, I don't date anymore. I'm chronically single by choice. And
okay.
but when I dated, people would people would go, "Do you like to hike?" And I would always be like, "Yeah." Which is a lie. Like, I hate that. Like, I don't wanna go on a hike, but I would say yes because
Oh,
I, like, wanted to be liked, you know? And then when
yeah,
you're single, you're like, "I don't like hiking. I get to not
yeah,
like hiking," you know?
yeah. No, it is very interesting to go from accommodating everything to I don't have to accommodate anything.
Mhm,
It
mhm.
is very interesting, for sure. So, okay, with all of this that you have been doing with Med Circle, we talked a little bit at the beginning or mentioned, the human animal bond. And I think you certainly don't have to, you know, talk too deeply about losing your dog, but I'm sure there were a lot of tactics that you found from Med Circle that were helpful
Yeah,
going through that sort of grief. And, for me, with what I do, because I do work one on one with clients to help. I generally have them coming to me because their pet is sick in some
mm,
form or fashion. And I see so much overlap in a disease that a dog or a cat has and physical ailments or diseases that the pet parent has had. There's so much in this human animal bond that I think we don't really give credit to on a day to day basis. And Uh, n it this is just one way I see it, but I also see it in how they can help heal us. So, I'm curious, in this journey you've had with this really incredible deep dive into the mental health world, how you see animals fitting into that.
In so many ways, I'm trying to pick some of my best learnings from Med Circle.
Yeah.
The first animal I ever saw die was a 67-year-old dolphin amico named Amico,
Wow.
and I walked into work, and he was at the bottom of the pool dead. And my boss at the time, who was a very authoritarian boss, he goes, "Get in the pool and dive down there and bring that dolphin back up and put it in the stretcher." And me and another trainer did. It was terrible. It was the first dolphin I ever had a relationship with, and he was a blind dolphin. So all of his cues were tactile. You would just basically draw on his body, and that was the cue for whatever we were trying to do. And I went home and I called my dad and I said, I don't know if I wanna do this. Like, I don't know if it's worth it. Like, I love it, and it's my dream job, but I don't know if the sacrifices.
Yeah.
But then you look at all the other animals and you're like, "Okay, it's worth it." And animals die. Animals die. I have to remind myself, that happens. They die. Back then, I was in my 20s, I had no experience coping with grief. I had experience coping with grief, I had no knowledge of how the best way to cope with grief. My mom died when I was 16, I had grieved a lot in my
Oh,
life, but I never knew how to grieve, and there is better ways to do it. When my dog died this year, it's kinda like I was ready. I was like, "Okay, dog's died, I'm ready to go with my grief, here we go."
wow.
And the first thing is I'm a very, very big proponent of somatic experiencing, and they have somatic experiencing therapy, which is great for anyone who's dealt with trauma to look into. And essentially, I love this example. This is how it was taught to me. And as animal lovers, you guys will get this. If you look at animals in the wild, they almost never develop what we would consider post traumatic stress disorder. They almost never develop those set of symptoms. And they go through the most traumatic things every day. Like a rabbit literally has to run for its life on a daily basis so it doesn't get eaten alive. And
Mhm.
you will watch a coyote chase a rabbit, and the rabbit will evade capture. And then the next thing it does, once it realizes, okay, I evaded the coyote, it shakes. It moves its whole
Mhm.
body, shakes it out, it moves its leg. And sometimes you'll see dogs after they get out of a kennel shake, or after they get bathed, they shake. And some people are like, yeah, it's because they've been cooped up and they want to shake out the water. They want to shake out that. And maybe that's right. But what I believe is that they're shaking out any trauma or shaking out their
Mhm.
trauma. And they do that so that they can shake out their trauma and go back to eating grass. And they do so in a matter of seconds. The rabbit shakes and then eats grass like nothing had ever happened. We don't do that as people. When
Right.
something traumatizes us, I get into a car accident. I'm like, okay, I got to call 911. All right, I got to go see if the other person's okay. All right, now I have to talk to the police. Now I have to call my boyfriend to come pick me up. Now I have to do a report. And you go hours and hours keeping it together, keeping it focused, keeping your everything right because you have to, okay? And then you get home and you're just like, okay, all right, I think maybe I'll have a glass of wine now. And you've never just let it out.
Mhm.
You've never gone,
Yeah.
I think if we let it out more, we would have less trauma. Bad things are gonna happen to us, but if we let it out after they happen to us, I think we'll experience less trauma. And so when my dog died, okay, which was the worst, I cried hard and I didn't hold back. Well, and people were around. My friends were over, my family was over, and I was letting it rip. And I was letting it rip because I was mourning and I was having this intense feeling of grief. And I knew I gotta get this out. This is my chance. This is like the window of opportunity. And when
Mhm.
everyone left, I cried even harder. I cried so hard that I threw up. I've never thrown up from crying. I cried harder when my dog died than when my mom died, not because I mourned them any more or less than the other, but because I knew that all these emotions and feelings I were having, to get them out was the best thing to do, not to swallow.
Yeah.
The next day, I woke up and immediately felt that flood of emotions coming in, and I made a choice to push them down because I was
Mm.
done crying. I was over it. I didn't wanna cry anymore. I'd been crying all night.
Yeah.
So I pushed them down and I talked to the doctors and I go, "Look, I did this. I pushed them down. What do you think?" And they go, "Look, you get to grieve however you want. If you wanna push them down, push them down." And you know what you did? You realized you were pushing them down. You were mindful of that. Most of us
Yeah.
are pushing it down. We don't even know we're doing it.
Right.
And so there are so many ways to heal from trauma. And I know we're talking about trauma again. I can't even remember your original question, but
That's okay.
the human bond with the animals. But I think if you shake it out when something traumatic happens, there's a lot of benefits to that. And it goes to bring it back to your question with the bond with humans. Animals have a soul. Everyone listening to this would agree with that because they're listening to the Pet Parenting Reset podcast.
Yeah.
I don't know if everybody on the planet believes that, but this group right here believes that animals have a soul. Humans have a soul. And those souls, those combine. And I don't even think we know what the implications of what that really means. But
Mhm.
I know it for a fact. I believe it so much to be true because I have felt my soul intertwine with that of a whale and with that of a dolphin and with that of many birds and of that with my dog. And it's an intertwining. It's different than, "Oh, this is my pet, and you sit, and I give you a treat, and you like me 'cause of me," and it's not that. This is deep. It's spiritual. I'm not a religious person or even a spiritual person, but that to me is spiritual. On that people have with animals, that is a spiritual thing happening, I think. Is that too woo-woo?
No, you have no idea how woo-woo this podcast gets.
I like a little woo-woo every now and then.
Yeah, I do too. I love my animal communicator friends and it's fun.
I
We have
used
some
to not
fun.
believe in animal psychics, and then I met this horse psychic, and I was like, "You you are blowing my mind." Like, she blew my mind, and I was like and maybe that goes back to this soul thing. Like, maybe some people are just more open to connect soulfully with an animal. And they have that. I don't have that. I'm not a psychic, and I'm a behaviorist at heart. I like behavior. So anyway,
Yeah. Well, my very good friend Karen Dindy Smith would tell you that if you want to talk to animals, you have the ability, you just have to practice.
yeah,
Well, yeah, I think we did get a little deep, which is great. I love it. I think it's probably a good place to end. I want to thank you for your time and for your knowledge and for coming to talk to all of us and to help us understand a little bit better some things we may not have thought about, especially when it comes to some of the wild and exotic animals that are in captivity for various reasons. And I very much appreciate all of the content that you're helping to put out for Med Circle because especially now with today, like we need help. We need to, I think, realize that we need help and seek out the best places that what resonates for us and places to confide in, to learn, to grow, to care for ourselves better. And when we do that, we can care for our pets better, in my opinion. So I just want to say thank you. And if you have any like final parting words, if there's anything you want to tell people listening.
Well, thank you for letting me come on. It's such an honor to share the space with you, as they say. If anyone's listening to this right now, please, please practice putting yourself first. And I know that can sound kind of silly because like, no, 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 we need to be giving and we need to share. And yeah, I know. Okay. We all know that. And in mental health, people are not putting themselves first. They're not. They jump from one thing to another. It's the narcissistic abusive relationship, and then they jump into some toxic thing at work, and then they're just giving and giving and giving and hoping someone gives back. And I want you to just be all about you. Be about you. And I went to therapy when I was 9 years old, and I started Med Circle when I was 31, I think. And I never learned what cognitive behavioral therapy was until I was started at Med Circle. And I had been in therapy since I was 9 and doing CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, for decades and didn't even know I was doing it. And so I implore people to seek out a credentialed mental health education because it is the game changer. It is the game changer. You want to know why you do these certain things. You want to know why you end up in these certain places. You want to know why you feel this way, why you do this thing, why you have that thought. There's insight. There's people who spend all their careers looking at this. And I think Med Circle is the best place to do that, obviously. But wherever you do it, do it. Because when you have that mental health, psychology, education, every part of your life gets better. I'm speaking from personal experience. Every part of your life gets better. I learned how to be empathic through Med Circle. I learned how to teach my nephew resilience through Med Circle. I learned how to be narcissist resistant. There is a very low chance I would ever end up with a narcissist because I know the handbook. I read it back and forth.
Eh, especially if you're not dating, Kyle.
You're not kidding. But, narcissists, they can be a boss, they can be a
Yeah,
mother-in-law, they can be a lot of other people. They can be your own freaking
they
parent.
can.
And then
Oh, yeah.
and then if they are your parent, how do you deal with that? Because some people won't cut them out of their lives. How do you deal with it? I know how to deal with it. So it sets you up for success to have that education. And so if that inspires you, check out the YouTube channel. It's free on Med Circle. Or if you're ready to do the deep dive, we have a great membership filled with a community of like-minded people at medcircle.com.
Awesome. And that link will be in the show notes as well, guys. And thank you again, Kyle, for being here. It was such a pleasure. I had such a great time talking with you. And with that, everyone listening, I appreciate you. Thank you so much for being here. Please give your pets some extra love from me and Kyle this week.
Yay.
And I will talk to you next week. Chances are you've heard of the gut brain axis. It is a communication system between the digestive tract and the brain, the central nervous system. And this affects our dog's behavior dramatically. Why? Because it affects mood and emotional regulation. Over 90% of serotonin, which is the feel-good neurotransmitter, is produced in the gut. If the gut is inflamed, dysbiotic, or nutrient deprived, it affects serotonin, GABA, dopamine, and can lead to anxiety, reactiveness, fearfulness, obsessive or compulsive behaviors, and so much more. Behavioral symptoms of a gut imbalance can include pacing, whining, barking, aggression, over-arousal, separation anxiety, ding, 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 OCD-type licking, spinning, chewing, sudden fearfulness or hypervigilance, trouble with focus or learning new cues. They're not training issues. They are neurochemical imbalances tied to gut health. What can we do about our dog's gut health? Well, we talk about that a lot on the Pet Parenting Reset, don't we? Especially a species appropriate diet, reducing gut inflammation, rebuilding the microbiome, nervous system regulation. But let's talk a little bit more about rebuilding the gut microbiome. I am thrilled that it took me so long to bring a sponsor on this podcast. Why? Because I'm picky. Because I am not going to bring a sponsor on this podcast that is going to ask me to say something that isn't true or that I don't believe in. I'm not going to bring a sponsor on this podcast who has some fancy product that you don't need. I decided to partner with Legacy Biome because I believe in their product, in the quality of the FMT that they are providing. So when we talk about rebuilding the gut microbiome, we can do that in a lot of different ways. And I talk a lot about the ways we can do that, including raw goat's milk and fermented fish stock, fermented vegetables, specific types of probiotic sources. But one of those specific types is going to be FMT, fecal microbiota transplant therapy. And Legacy Biome is bringing us the cleanest, most efficient, most effective in their enteric coated capsules, which make it easy for us to give FMT therapy to our dogs and now cats at home in the convenience of our home. So yes, I want you to take a moment to consider if Legacy Biome could be something that your dog or cat needs. I know I have used it in the past with my animals. Most recently with Kimberly, we have had a very stressful year. And in that stressful year, she has eaten some food that I may not have wanted her to eat. And we've had a few challenges along the way. Not that she ate anything horrible, don't get me wrong, but she has eaten some cat food that maybe I didn't want her to eat. She has maybe had some treats that I didn't want her to have. And we've had some issues. I think mostly with stress, but again, this gut-brain axis and stress is a huge factor in our gut health as well, and in our mental health. So I have used Legacy Biome FMT with Kimberly very recently, and I'm very happy to have Legacy Biome sponsoring this podcast this week. So when we talk about our mental health and our pets' mental health, we can't help but talk about that gut-brain axis and how it all works together. So yes, we're talking about behavior and we're talking about training and all the things, but we cannot overlook the role of the gut in all of this. So when I was training dogs, this was the first thing I talked to people about. And I have to say, it was very difficult for a lot of people to hear. They just wanted a quick, tell me how to train my dog fix. And that doesn't help if your dog doesn't feel good. So if you think Legacy Biome might be for you, or not you, but your pet, your dog or your cat, go to legacybiome.com, use the code TPPR10 to get 10% off of your first order. I am very excited to see, the changes. Tell me about the changes that you see, that you notice in your dog or your cat. And if you have questions about how to measure all of that, to find out if your pet even needs it, please reach out to me. I'm here for you, especially on Instagram direct message or through the website, thepetparentingreset.com. You can message me there as well. With that, I want to say thank you to Legacy Biome for sponsoring this podcast and for giving us an incredible FMT therapy for our pets. Go check out Legacy Biome at legacybiome.com and use the code TPPR10 to get 10% off of your first order.